I call upon the Dean of Science, Mrs. Debrito, to do the welcome speech. Thank you.
On behalf of the School of Science and Technology, I would like to welcome the top management team, Dr. Landu, the PVC ARI, Academic Research and Innovation, and if we have other TMT members who will join us later, welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. I would like to welcome the executive deans, executive directors, HODs, if you are among the audience. Welcome for this seminar series for School of Science and Technology. We would like to have special and warm welcome to our visiting scholar, who is also a presenter this morning from Curtin University, Australia. Thank you for being with us. We welcome the round of applause. We also would like to extend our welcome to all our staff in the School of Science and other schools, and students, and also our industrial training partner, that is Mauberamam Executive Director, who is with us, Mr. Moses Carey. Thank you for coming, and we will be doing the MOU signing towards the end of this session. Welcome.
Our first presenter this morning is Dr. Baro Gise. Dr. Gise completed undergraduate at UPNG in 2006 and worked with Inter Oil Limited until 2009 as a crude oil refinery technician. He won a Max Scholarship in early 2009 to study Japanese language, then continued to do MSc in 2012 and PhD in 2015 under the supervision of Professor Hideo Kigoshi at the University of Tsukuba, Japan. He started his career as an academic with UPNG Chemistry Division under the guidance of Professor John Kohler and Professor Topul Raleigh until 2017. He left UPNG after more than 2 years to do Endeavour Postdoctoral Research Fellowship 2018 at the University of New South Wales, Australia. Currently, he is attached with the UOG Chemistry strand since 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome Dr. Baro Gise.
The creation of novel and functional materials, synthesis of folate styrosine A. Styrosine A is a cyclic peptide as well from marine spawns. So this is the outline. Subtopics that are talking about bioprospective, bioassay-guided isolation and extraction, structure residence synthesis, synthesis of analogs, and then extension of current studies. We are looking for inspiration. We are looking for motivation and also new ideas and new leads. So bioprospective, you can do bioprospective on land and underwater. And it's very risky. You can be eaten by a shark or taken out by an octopus. Who knows? We are looking for a C-snail marine spawns. And then from this marine spawns, our group has already this compound is an anti-cancer cancer and tumor agent from this marine spawns. It's apronin A and A, B, and C. And we also extend our studies to this marine spawns. This one is obtained from Goroka Island by scuba diving, Lucida species and Sarisamasa. And then bioassay guided isolation and extraction of this from these two marine spawns. The initial stages, it was done in atmosphere, extraction of this crude species, crude samples, and transported to Japan, and then the rest of this part was done in Japan. We do a solvent partitioning, guided by bioassay, guided isolation, so the active fractions were further isolated, and then in this, from this Lucida species, the butanol was more active. And from the Sarisamasa, the ethanoacetate was active, so we further separate, and then the methanol layer, from this we got these two fractions. From dichloromethanol layer and then the methanol layer. So we have these three fractions tuberculosis because they suppress the inos activity. Inos is the first point of when you are, example, when you walking barefoot and if you are hit your leg on the cement, you feel this pain in there. That's inos, that's the first point of it will tell you that there's a problem with your leg or something, it's head. So this is the first point of it will tell you. So inos. So we use this bioassay to determine the anti-inflammatory activity of samples. And then these are screening, negative control, and these are positive control. Indomethacin is a famous anti-inflammatory compound. If you have inflammation, if you go to a hospital, they will prescribe this medicine. So we use this as a positive control. And then we use the positive control as 200 micrograms. So why we use 200 compared to this one, 100 micrograms? What we want to make sure that what we are getting here is more effective than much better than the known medicine. That's why we use this as a 200 microgram, and then the samples we use 100 microgram. But if you see the samples, the inos activity is much better than the indomethacin. But if you look at this one, this is a cell viability, and this is inos activity. So this sample here, the cell viability is more than 50%. And then the inos activity is very, very effective compared to this the known medicine. So we concentrate on isolation of this fraction. And we further separated this the active fraction, chloroform, dichloromethane to this, we obtain these 4 fractions, compound A, B, C, and D. And then we do the inos assay and compare to this indomethacin. And then all the inos activity is less than 50%. And then the cell viability is all higher than this all the performance is comparable to the known medicine, indomethacin. These are pure compounds, so then we proceed on with the structure isolation. Structure isolation, first we did a proton element, and then we find some this presence of aromatic protons. These are alpha protons, and this alkyl. So this one also corresponds to this. These protons correspond to carbons correspond to this, and then all this one corresponds to this. But this one, higher than 150, almost 200, is all carbonic carbons. And then we do a partial structure analysis. And then we identify we have 7 of these partial structures in that compound. We have 2 chlorines, 2 isoleucine, 2 phenylalanine, and then tyrosine. And then in it, it's very difficult to determine this carbon. If you look at this one, this all these carbons, they resonate at almost the same chemical shift. So it's very difficult. So at this, we cannot determine the exact chemical shift for each carbonyl carbons. So all resonate at 171 to 174 ppm. 7 partial structures. We proceed on to determine the stereochemistry of this. These are all amino acid residues. We don't know if this is a D amino acid or L amino acid. So then we proceed on to determine the amino sequence, stereochemistry and amino acid sequence. So first we use a MALDI to determine the amino acid sequence. Tyrosine is connected to phenylalanine, chlorine is connected to this isoleucine. And then we are left with 2 more amino acid residues. So if you look at this one, this proline is the same one connected to isoleucine, and the same proline attached to tyrosine, phenylalanine. That means the cyclic structure is complete. This is connecting one of these isoleucine, and then connecting phenylalanine, and then the cyclic structure is complete. So this is in between isoleucine, one of these isoleucine, and then connect also to our phenylalanine. So from here we can determine the sequence, but this is not definite. So we do another analysis, and then we try to complete the structure, the cyclic, and then we determine the structure is this tyrosine connected isoleucine, phenylalanine, chlorine, isoleucine, proline, and phenylalanine. And this phenylalanine is connected to a tyrosine. So the structure is all connected. So it's a cyclic heptapeptide. But still we don't know if these amino acids are D or L. So we still need to determine the stereochemistry. So we use Murphy's method. These are known amino acids, D and L amino acids, and these are our sample. So if you look at this one, all the peaks correspond to the elucent time is all identical to this. So we determine that these are all L amino acids. So our structure, our amino acid is all L amino acid. This is our studies of today. These are cyclic heptapeptide. Then we also isolated non-compounds, these three. Together with this one, we isolated that these are all isolated by this group. And among this one, this is the new one we isolated from this study semester. To confirm the structure of this one, we have to do synthesis. So we do a solid synthesis. So when we click of this one, we get 2 segments. And then if you click all the amino acid residues, we have 4 amino acid residues. And then we use this isoleucine as a starting material, common starting material. Segment 1, in step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 steps, we obtain segment 1 in 40%. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, we also obtain segment 2 in 68%. And then we try to connect this couple is 5 and 8, segment 1 and 2. In this condition, and we have this is our target. But our target was in minor, it turned out as a minor product. And the epimer, the side product, was a major product. So the problem was this: when we couple these two, the proton on that carbon was deprotonated and then reprotonated. So the structure, the stereochemistry of this isoleucine was changed from these two, this will become this is D amino acid, D allo amino acid. This is L amino acid and this is D allo amino acid. So the structure changes, the stereochemistry of this section. And then we have this 9 and 10, our 9 our target, we get this one, our target compound, and then the epimer. So then we compare the proton NMR, this epimer, natural product, and the synthetic. The synthetic and the natural product is all identical. So that means the structure of the natural product is confirmed, the chemical structure is confirmed. And then next, we try to, this is our inspiration, these are new ideas, these are motivations. So we try to add value to that new compound. So we try to synthesize that fluorinated. Why do you want to do fluorination? Increase bioavailability, and then bioavailability, add value to it, create novel and functional materials. So why you want to add fluorine? This is the reason why we want to add fluorine to a compound. So this is our target for the compound structure of the fluorine-related analogs. We plan to introduce fluorine to this fluorine, one of these fluorines. So if you introduce fluorine, we will have S and R positions, we will have 11 and 12, 2 on this one, and if you introduce a fluorine, it will have S and R positions, the stereochemistry, so we have 2 of these ones. And then we do the nitrosynthesis, and then we come up with these 4 starting materials, and then we plan to introduce fluorine to this fluorine. So to get this one, we introduce fluorine to this carbon. So to get this one, you have to start with this one. So this is our starting material. So this is our foundation. 16 and 17, we use a deoxo flow to introduce fluorine group to get our starting materials, 18 and 19. The stage is now set for fluorination. It is starting material. So we do a solid phase peptide synthesis, starting with this one. It's a repetition step, so in 7 steps, we have this cyclic product, linear product. And then using this one, we clip off the solid phase, and then we have our cleanup cycle paper, and then we cyclize to get our fluorinated analogs. So this is our fluorinated analogs, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we do a chlorine. Properly, I want to compare. This is the epiman. This is the natural product, and then this is the fluorinated analog. Comparing this one, the difference is this, and then this. This is the epiman. So this is our fluorinated analogs. So we are trying to extend our current studies to include these compounds. These are from Manado Island in Indonesia. We are trying to introduce chlorine to increase these anti-malaria product agents. If you take a altimeter, you will see the structure. This is for this is the reactive one. If you break off from this one, they need to react with the malaria process. So we are trying to introduce chlorine to these sections. This one, to get a new analogs like this one. These are proposed structures. So these are our collaborators, Professor Hideo Kimoshi, Professor Kita Masaki, and Associate Professor Lukanda from the University of New South Wales. These guys are expert in chlorine chemistry, and these two are expert in medicinal chemistry. So working together to create these novel and functional materials. So in our acknowledgement to Professor Louis Matenau for the help in mobilization, Dr. Paul Monia from General Hospital, and Lex Terminator. I leave you with this changes right behind in terms of research education. How do we close the gap? Close it again because strategic funding, capacity building, global collaboration, and trust. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Moses Kerry has a Bachelor of Natural Science with honors at the University of Goroka. His area of expertise is in biological sciences. He is currently attached with the Mauberema Ecotourism Nature Conservation Education Research and Training Center. His presentation will be on creating a sustainable conservation approach in Papua New Guinea using a case study of Mauberema Ecotourism and Conservation in Sinesine, Yongomol District of Cebu Province. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Moses Kerry.
Okay, I'm from Mauberema. The title of my presentation is basically creating a sustainable conservation approach in Papua New Guinea, which we believe is a key tool for biodiversity conservation and management, climate change mitigation, and also addressing all those socio-economic problems that is affecting our rural communities. This is a project that we actually started back in 2017, 29 September, with a partnership with the Division of Biological Science and the University of Goroka. We are now into our 5th year. I've been teaching with the university for the last 11 years after graduating from the university. And I decided to retire this just last year and focus on managing my own organizations for this. Okay, we all heard about people talking about conservations. Why conservations? There are 2 reasons why we want to conserve our terrestrial environments as well as the marine resources. But our organization is basically focusing on conserving those terrestrial resources, looking at all those different threats that is currently going on, those human-induced activities that is affecting our biodiversity and all this. And also when you look at the significance of biodiversity, there are so many significant in terms of the ecological services that it provides, as well as other socio-economic benefits that we receive from the forest. There are several conservation organizations that we have in the country, and many of them are failing because they don't know how to sustain their operation as an organization, as well as the type of activities that they have been doing in the community. So we believe that the sustainable conservation is a key tool for biodiversity conservation management, climate change mitigation, and socio-economic development in a forest developing country like Papua New Guinea. And there are different organizations, government, conservation group, institutions, researchers. We all promoted the name climate change. But how do we address those problems? So when you look at the global climate change goal and mission is to empower individuals and their communities to engage in solutions to mitigate those effects of climate change and all this. So this is a picture taken from the recent forest there in Amazon. Okay, a brief background of, PNG is with less than 1% of the global landmass. It has 5% of the global biodiversity. And then we have the 10th largest tropical rainforest, and 80% of our 7.3 million, that was, now it's going up to 9 million. So they all live in the rural areas. We are culturally diverse. We have more than 800 different languages. And despite those, we still are a forest developing country. So when you talk about conservation, like mostly 80% of the people own the traditional, it's very challenging now. Because you cannot just go in and conserve a forest without getting the permissions from the landowners. And when you look at conservation, it doesn't involve money. And it's very challenging dealing with people when you talk about something that doesn't involve money, because people nowadays are focusing on money. So in PNG itself, conservation is very challenging. Okay, about us, I mentioned it stands for No.4 ecotourism. No.4 is the name of the two stones that we have in the forest, No and Berma. So we put it together and say No.4. And we try to incorporate so many different programs like ecotourism, nature conservation, and these are all, those different programs we coordinate in such a way that they complement each other. So it's more like a professional community-based organization, mostly run by our own elites and graduates, students and others. So we established on the 29th of September with the support from the Biological Science Division in 2017. So now it's like 5 years into our existence or operations. Okay, we formally registered as a professional community-based organization with the investment promotion material the 28th of November in 2020. All our staffs, they are the students from the University of Goroka, like the one in the middle. He was doing his industrial training with us in 2019. He worked with our organization for 2 years on a voluntary basis. And now currently, just recently, 2 weeks ago, he was recruited to work with Me Bank as a branch manager. So that's one of our biggest achievements. From a voluntary to a paid as a manager with the Me Bank. And now we have Mipa at the back is just recently graduated university here with environment and indigenous study. He also do our practical with us, and now he's currently managing our terrestrial and indigenous program with No.4. We also have others from Unitech, and like 3 more they are also joining us. But they are not paid, they are all working on a voluntary basis. Okay, our mission is to create a sustainable conservation approach in Pauni, which we believe is a key tool for biodiversity conservation management, climate change mitigation, and socio-economic development. Our program focuses mainly on community ecotourism, wildlife protection and conservation, and this all complemented with education, research, training, and we also support community livelihood programs. Like as a professional community-based organization, working in the community, we have plans to extend to other parts of the districts within the province, as well as if it means to move out, depending on our capacity, organization capacity and all this. We hope maybe in the future we can move further. So that can be achieved through local, regional and global partnerships that's mostly needed. Our aim and objectives is primarily to protect the forest with its diverse flora and fauna, maintain the scenic and recreational value of its cultural heritage, natural heritage, culture and environment. We try to promote biocultural diversity through nature-based education, research and training, in collaborations with our partner organizations and institutions. Also, in order to achieve that, we need to promote sustainable livelihood for the people, because when they actively involved in those socio-economical activities that benefits them, then they know all about conservation, so they will go ahead with the conservation. Okay, we have 5 strategies that, as an organization, that we implement, which are all coordinated with our programs. We try to establish a relationship network with PNG government, as well as national and international organizations for technical and financial support. Conduct biological research into extant flora and fauna within the Moguruma conservation area, and ultimately to understand and protect the biodiversity within the area. Planning for a sustainable future through sustainable resource use by developing a framework for effective implementations and monitoring of land use management plans, and establish a conservation ranger program, and build leadership capacity across the Moguruma community. Fourth, establish community livelihood initiative to healthy living, education, as well as integrating conservation-related curriculum into schools, local schools, teaching systems, starting with our local Dinma Primary School. This includes building school libraries, support village, and all this. We also involved in those reforestation project that goes in line with the PNG government 10-minute tree planting program. And finally, once we have our conservation management committee established, we are currently working with our partners, WCS, to have our conservation deed. So it's now currently on a review stage with the community landowners. So once it's done, we will obviously launch it and have the conservation deed, and then we will create a conservation management committee for the people, all the funds, whatever benefits that we receive will source into those conservation management community, where they can help to distribute to the resource owners and all this. So that is through the Dinma Endowment Fund that we will be establishing. To ensure equitable sharing of benefits by providing employment and training opportunities for locals, internships for graduate and postgraduate students, and IELTS staff positions. Okay, these are our main programs. We have culture and ecotourism promotions and activities, biodiversity conservation, community mapping, biodiversity survey and monitoring, community empowerment, decision-making process, environmental education, assessment and awareness, community forestry, climate change, sustainable community livelihood, health and hygiene, gender empowerment, appropriate technology development, community capacity building, workshop, and training, research and publications. These are some of our programs that we currently run under Moguruma. Okay, this is our organization profile. As you can see, we have the board of management in place, the executive director, then that is for the main center as an organization, and then we have the deputy director of finance. So we try to create so many positions where we can address these unemployment opportunities and all this. But that depends once we have the financial capacity in the future and all this. But there are people now who are working on a voluntary basis who are managing those different programs that we have. Then we have conservation programs, culture and tourism, health, education, training and research, livelihood programs, health and hygiene program. So you can see that it's a complicated structure. We try to establish to make sure that there is effective communications and flows that benefits between we as intermediate between the local communities and the partner organizations and all this. So you can look at this. Our conservation segment is a middle focus person between us as a professional community-based organization and the CBO. So currently we have, under the Moguruma conservation projects, we have 8 clans. What 1 to 8 they are involved. It's like 14,000 people. Estimate we try to manage such. It's very challenging dealing with those 14,000 people, getting them to establish CBO to coordinate. So we, as I mentioned, we are as a professional organization, and then we establish different CBOs. So on top we work as a program managers. These are only the elites, graduates. They will fill up those positions because they are the ones who will be monitoring and doing this. But the actual project implementers are the communities at the base level. So we have those different CBOs. So this is part of our organization structure. We have a technical team also at supporting us. But that's project sites. Chinchimbus in Tabarology, closest town, Punjab, Goroka. We have done a mapping, preliminary mapping done. With the help of our partners, WCS, we already mapped the area. It's exactly around 1,900 to 2,000 meters above the elevation gradient. So it's located in the intermediate zones between the lower mountain forest and the upper alpine vegetation. So that's this is the map of the area. You can see on the top is a conservation area. It's roughly about 3,000 hectares, and then we also have a reforestation site. Okay, formal description is a proposed wildlife management area given the size. Area is yet to be surveyed and mapped. We will use GIS. Social, economical, ecological requirements. So many community awareness has been done. The landowners will get their concerns. Looking at the economical assessment, no source of income, butternut, coffee are the main source of income. We also done some ecological surveys, diverse flora and fauna found within the area. We also document our traditional knowledge, and we still need, there is a need for a complete inventory of biodiversity assessment of the area. These are some project highlights. Before you start something, you have to get consents. But it is what happens from 2017 to 19 that not update whatever we achieved from the last time. Before you start anything, we have to get traditional partnership agreement with the nature or the No.4 Masalai. So we use customary obligations to make sure that there is agreement. We have done some traditional land boundary. These are forest track maintenance. Boys, we have used our own resources trying to construct. I think this is the first university trip to as an official trip in 29 September. Dr. Landu, the AVC, is addressing the community, I think university students. Ms. Debrito obviously cutting the ribbon, and now I'm happy that we will sign the MOU to make sure we strengthen our partnership. These are some photos of students. Field trips from University of Goroka. Now we also received the Enga campus several times. Also, we signed an MOU with the University of Nature Resources and Environment this year. Last year they sent 5 students to do the internship with us for 2 months. So, in terms of ecotourism, we have identified our different products: cultural tourism, endangered wildlife, adventure tourism, agro-tourism, and also now we are into voluntary tourism to promote voluntarism, which we believe is one of the concepts of development which the government and the people need to realize. We into culture as well, promote culture, preserve. These are some utilizing our smaller kids. We also have community partnerships. In terms of education program, we have a home center. Currently, we established a Mobile Mainly Science Center. These are some activities that we do, para-ecological training, the wildlife sharing monitoring workshop. We have done some GPS training with the Wildlife Conservation Society. And now we have staff who are qualified. They can also teach students how to use GPS in the method. This is our resource center, which is recently built. It's a double story, representing those 8 ward councillors that we have, and conference room offices and all this. Currently, we are partnering with Melanesians through the Outset grant, the IFED. They are supporting us with. We planted so far 10,000 tree seedlings. Then we have a nursery. There's a second nursery. WCS, our partners, have also established a nursery in the forest. I think health and hygiene, community beautification projects. We have community empowerments. Nari is also partnering with us now. These are some projects, just highlights of what we have been doing. We also established Me Bank. Currently, we are an agent for the Me Bank with the partnerships. So we have partners USA under this, and K International Wildlife Conservation is our lead partner. Yeah, partnerships. Biological Science is our initial partner since 2017, and we are happy that now we will be obviously signing the MOU. We are partnered with Melanesia Binatang Research. They also supporting me as well, so they are included. Okay, under the USA Biodiversity Development Grant Program, we have the lead organization, WCS, Cardinal, K International Research and Conservation Foundations. Also, SEPA is supporting us with 50,000 to build the resource center. We have also support from PNG Tourism Promotion Authority. Now that we recently signed an MOU with the University of Nature Resources and Environment, they will be setting their center, island center at Mount Brahma. and then we'll be continuing to listen to the students and all this. We have National Agricultural Research Institution. These are some of the challenges that we went through. Changing people mindset is something very hard to, like when people, their focus is on money, it's very challenging when you want to talk about something that is not, that doesn't involve money and all this. Communications, trust and confidence, money, greed and jealousy, lack of government support, laziness. You can list others you can think of. I think way forward we need more government support, building local human resource capacity, more partnership and collaborations, both national and international. To conclude, how do we achieve a sustainable conservation? Because sustainable conservation is key to biodiversity conservation and management. And it needs active community engagement. And it requires more social investment into forest community. And this calls for more partnership and collaboration at both national and international level. Acknowledgement in University of Goroka Biological Science, all our partners, my fellow PNG colleagues, and special thanks to my Maobarima community. And finally to you.
Thank you, Mr. Moses Kerry. Such a young man and decided to leave work and go and start something for the community. I thought that was very thought-provoking, motivational and encouragement to young people as well. Our next presenter is Mr. Gabriel Petwell. Mr. Petwell has a Master's in Philosophy in Forestry from the PNG Unitec and Bachelor of Science in Biology from the University of Goroka. His area of expertise is in environmental sciences, forestry and climate change. He is currently a senior tutor with the Biological Science Division. Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome Mr. Gabriel Petwell.
Thank you very much for having me here to present on this topic on ecological role of alien plant species in early successional vegetation along lowland rainforest of Papua New Guinea. And you can see this is a research that was conducted by that we conducted under the New Guinea Binatang Research Center in partnership with ExxonMobil and the PNG University of Technology. So just given the topic of ecological role of alien plant species in ecological succession, early succession, you can see this is basically us talking about plant species that are not native to Papua New Guinea. And we all know that New Guinea remains as one of the most largest tropical islands in the world that is covered with the 10th largest rainforest after the Amazon and the Congo Basin. And the threat in which the tropical forests have been destroyed has been mainly a center of attention by many scientists and ecologists globally. So given these threats towards biodiversity in Papua New Guinea, as well as the forest that we have, invasive plant species as well, they contribute towards one of these global threats towards biodiversity and all this. So in this research here, we basically were trying to understand how diversity distribution and the main drivers that affect this distribution. So there have been a few studies that explored different structures and patterns of alien plant species. But we wanted to basically look at the community compositions of these plant species, understanding their diversity, like the alpha and the beta diversity, and how we can be able to create sustainable management in managing these invasive weed species that are coming into the country. So these were the research questions that we have asked. We had one was, what is the diversity of exotic plant species in different habitat types, and if there are any significant differences between these? And secondly, do different habitat types influence the diversity and the composition of exotic plant species? And thirdly, are there any habitat preferences by these exotic plants? And would there be any differences between these human disturbed and natural disturbed habitats? So you can see here, we have, this is our study sites, and we have one, the one that is highlighted in here is Baitabat, that is located in Medang province. And then we have biodata as well. Here you can see from the second map. And we have in the middle run of the area of Medan province, that is right in the forest, primary forest area, we have some field transects that we have conducted as well, which is 1-on-1 and 1-on-3. And finally, ExxonMobil pipeline. And thanks to the support from ExxonMobil, we were basically able to monitor invasive weed species that were spreading along the ExxonMobil pipeline due to machinery movement and disturbance caused by anthropogenic activities. So you can see here, these are basically some methods and materials. For under the methods and materials, some examples of some transects that we have. And this is basically the satellite image of construction sites. We looked at 5 different habitat types, that is construction site regeneration, road sites, river sites, and open canopy, open canopy and old gardens. So we classified these areas into these sites into human disturbed anthropogenic activities and the ones that were caused by natural abundance. Like for example, the riverside and open canopy are basically natural disturbance, and construction site regeneration, road sites, river sites, and road sites, all gardens, and all logging areas were human disturbed sites. So this is for, you can see the satellite image for open canopy here, which is quite a huge exposure to sunlight. And this is the image from down below projecting towards up. And we have this for all gardens. Here, the satellite image here, and this is the site of all gardens here. Some methods that we applied basically to test for our analysis one was the Kruskal-Wallis test. And the Kruskal-Wallis test was basically a non-parametric test that we used because we wanted to compare more than 3 or more unmatched groups in our study site. And we also conducted, we did a species accumulation curve, looking at alpha diversity between habitat types. And we used 2 different approaches in this study. One was to estimate the species richness from the samples that we have collected. And one was by using a non-parametric estimator called the incident-based coverage estimator that we used because we wanted to see the species, if there is any species similarity between these habitat types as well. This is the incident-based coverage estimator, and also we looked at randomized species accumulation curves. That is by doing an extrapolation and interpolation of species accumulation curves in each habitat type as we go along, using the INEX package in R and the R version 3.5, yes, we use that. So for beta diversity, we looked at permutational multivariate ANOVA. That is when we did a multidimensional scaling looking at a Brachiotis index that we used to see the dissimilarities and similarities between species. And finally, we used the correspondent canonical correspondent analysis. And since our goal here was to help identify and measure association between these sets of variables, we used this as CCA analysis. So from this graph here, you can see after we run the Kruskal-Wallis test showing weed family richness, you can see we've categorized that into human disturbance and natural disturbance. And this is our weed family richness and the habitat types that we have. So we have all logging area which has seen a high number in weed family species richness, followed by road sites. And these letters here, A, B, and B, they basically tell you either there is a similarity between these 2 sites, or habitat types, or there is a huge difference between them. So when we ran the Kruskal-Wallis test, we found out that all logging areas had a higher with family richness compared to the other habitats as well. We also did that for with species richness as well. You can see from here, human disturbed sites, all logging area continue to lead in terms of with species richness and with family richness. And the reason behind this was that because during activities of logging, you know that there is so much machinery and so much exposure of the soil towards coming in. So either these invasive species, they have a type of propagule that can be able to, or seeds that can be able to attach to the tires of these machineries that brings in these seeds towards new areas. And then once these plant species have been introduced into these new habitats, they tend to sprout and then take over native plant species. Okay, this is a species accumulation curve we basically did, and you can see from the species accumulation curve here the number of transects that we have, and the for species diversity, and the number of transects that we have for for species diversity for each habitat types, and species diversity for each site of where we collected our data from. So you can see here, this is using R as well. Here you can see from the road sites continue to lead in terms of species diversity. And you can see that we haven't reached a sampling size yet, because that tells these extrapolated lines here tells us that if we continue to increase our number of transects, probably we could be able to reach a asymptote here that tells us that we have reached a maximum sampling size. But because you see, so that means that we need to still continue to increase the number of transects as we continue to do the study. And in the places here, you can see that ExxonMobil is doing quite well in terms of management of its invasive species compared to these other areas as well. Because you can see that it is starting to reach a asymptote here. So that tells us that the biodiversity team in ExxonMobil are basically, and the measures that they put in place to basically manage the spread of invasive species is quite good compared to these other sites that we have here. Okay, this is the incidence coverage estimate, and you can see here, this is species diversity and the number of transects that we have. At the start, you have a fluctuation in terms of the species diversity. It's because we have a small sampling size, but as we continue to the number of transects, as the sampling continue to increase, we tend to reach the ice tends to meet the chow one, which is the actual species accumulation curve, is the black line here. The upper and the lower 95% confidence limits are the dotted lines, and the red line here is the ice, the incidence coverage, incidence of coverage in estimate, and the chow 2 here is the blue line here. So you can see that we were using this basically to see if there is any similarities as well in terms of the species diversity that we have. Okay, looking at the CCA analysis here, you can see all gardens, roadsides, all logging areas tend to cluster together away from the natural disturbed sites, the riverside and open canopy. And you can see species like Cynidara nodiflora, Sanchez perivet, Hyptis capitata, Meremia peltata, tend to share the same species. Sorry, my apologies. They tend to do quite well, the riverside and open canopy, compared to the anthropogenic disturbance. So you can see that all gardens, roadsides, all logging area, they tend to cluster together. However, you can see construction site regeneration tend to be be far apart from this, as basically as we have seen in the species accumulation curve, due to probably a good management of resources, of measures that they have put in. And a CCA analysis also for life forms as well. You can see that the human disturbed sites tend to have clustered together, as well as riverside or an open canopy tend to be far apart from that. So we can, from here, then we were able to basically draw conclusions that these human disturbed sites tend to be the main causes of invasive plant species in coming into the country. When there is an anthropogenic disturbance, that helps introduce invasive species to come in. This is a multidimensional scaling as well, using R as well. And you can see from this multidimensional scaling here, you can see that the community compositions between these 6 different habitats shows that the human disturbed sites tend to be closer together compared to the natural disturbed sites that are far apart from the human disturbed sites. So from there we basically came up with some conclusions on that. And looking at the family composition and life form composition, you can see that from these invasive species that have been spreading in the country, Poaceae and Asteraceae tend to be leading in terms of having a high composition compared to other family species. And you can understand why when you look at the structure of the plant species itself, the family, because they tend to have nice flowers that can be able to be dispersed by wind and other sources of dispersion. Okay, and for life forms, you can see that mostly herbs tend to have this high composition compared to grass, vines, shrubs, trees, and sedges. So we wanted to track back and see how the origin, introduction, and lifespan of these particular species are coming from. And we see that a number of these alien plants found, they originated from mostly America, the tropical America. So most of these invasive species that have been coming into the country tend to be originate from tropical America compared to the other continents that we have. And you can see that the reasons for introduction was that because horticulture was one of the main source of introduction for most of these invasive species. And in there you can see that perennial species are the ones that usually have a higher composition compared to annual and biennial and annual species. So from there, the approach of examining species diversity and composition appears unifying and describing these environmental factors that shape the distribution of alien plants. And our results highlight an interesting linkage between invasive plant species and invaded habitats. And with the use of multidimensional scaling, we will be able to confirm this significant effect on species composition, as well as CCA analysis on human disturbed habitats and more. So to conclude, this study can be also a baseline for further sampling of and understanding of species distribution and diversity of alien plants in different habitat types throughout Papua New Guinea. And thank you. I think that brings me to... So I'll just show you some pictures here. So these are some of the plants that we have found in human disturbed sites, these alien plants. You have Micania micranta, Cyperus perifolius, Statichophyta jamaicensis, Mimosa pudica, Senna alata, Agratum conijoides, Phosocephalum crepidioides, and one of the most troublesome weed that we have seen in most sites is the Piper aduncum, which is now taking over forest edges and also in forest understories and all this. So this is a current threat towards our tropical diversity that we have. And some invasive species that we found in natural disturbed areas is Commelina bengalens, Myrtacapus hirtus, Spagonetilia trilobata, and Paspalum conjugatum. So these are some species that we have, just for you to see of what we mean by alien plant species. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gabriel, for all the scientific names. We're still waiting for UFOs, but aliens are already here. All right, so thank you, Gabriel. We'll proceed on. Our final speaker for this session is our visiting scholar, and he's Professor George Curry from Curtin University. Now, Professor Curry's teaching and research interests are in areas of development studies, migration, rural geography, and research methods. Most of his research has been in rural Papua New Guinea, examining socio-cultural and economic change associated with the transition to a market economy. Much of his research is at the household or village level, often involving extended periods of fieldwork. He uses a sustainable livelihood approach to investigate how export cash cropping and labor migration are accommodated within quasi-subsistence economics, where indigenous relations of production and exchange and communal land tenure are still extant. George is currently leading a research project investigating the livelihoods of coffee smallholder communities in Papua New Guinea. This research is in collaboration with other Australian and PNG researchers. Professor Curry has co-authored a number of journal articles, industry and research reports, and manuals for agriculture extension officers. From 2001 to 2009, he was co-editor of Geographical Research, the journal of the Institute of Australian Geographers. Please, ladies and gentlemen, may welcome Professor George Curry.
I know the whole purpose of research, apart from finding out something new or confirming something, is to communicate the results. There's no point doing research and only you are involved in it. So there's no point doing research without actually being able to communicate the findings to other people. And communication and writing through research publications in journals or reports, the whole essence is to make it as simple as possible for people to quickly get the information they need. So you don't need long sentences, you don't need complicated language. You should aim for clarity in all your writing. Keep sentences short, keep expression clear, avoid ambiguity, which is very common. And a lot of these problems are from direct experience of being an editor of a journal for 9 years. So what are the characteristics of your writing? If you write clearly and concisely, that gives the impression that you're a clear thinker. If it's not clear and concise, to me as an editor or a reader, I would think you're a messy thinker. It's not clear. You have to show clarity in your thinking. Correct spelling, well, that's a sign that you're educated, you know what you're doing. Punctuation and grammar good, you're competent at what you're doing. The arguments are well presented and logical. You're convincing, well organized, and a good researcher. These are the impressions. Writing unclear and ambiguous. I just, as an editor, think messy thinker. Poor spelling. Lazy. They're not doing the job properly and they're submitting a paper that's not ready to be submitted. So why should I, as an editor, correct it? Why should I do the author's work? It's very annoying to editors when they get papers that are, poorly put together, the spelling's bad, and so on. Poor punctuation and grammar. That would indicate that the author's being careless. Okay? Arguments poorly presented. It gives a sign of incompetence. And I'll tell you a secret. When I used to we had deadlines. We did 4 issues of a journal a year. And we used to get lots and lots of papers coming in. And they were going out for review. A lot of them were rejected straight away without being reviewed because there were just a lot of those problems. But when it came to choosing which papers to work on, if you had a pile that high, the ones that are well written, well structured, tended to come to the top because they're easier. Editors are very short of time because they hold down full-time jobs themselves, right? So we're all doing our teaching, we're all doing our research, so this is extra at night. So if a paper's nice and easy, clear, well argued, just from a quick read through, it'll rise to the top of the pile and probably get published faster than the papers needing a lot of work. So before you write, you should ask yourself some basic questions. Who am I writing for? Because the audiences are different. You might be writing an extension report or an extension manual for farmers. So you've got to think of writing it in a way that the farmer will understand. So you might, for example, keep everything quite basic in terms of expression, maybe even writing it in pidgin. You need to think about what they need to know. Okay, so for example, if it's an extension manual, what is it that the farmer actually needs to know? They might need to know all about exports and imports of coffee around the world. Well, they want to know what's basically going to be useful in their lives. If you're writing a research paper for a policy journal, you might want to then think about more the policy implications of your research, not the straight up research. If it's an academic journal and you want to contribute to the theory of that topic, well then you've got to keep that perspective. So it's best to think about who your audience are. The best writing style is one that achieves getting the information across to the researcher, to the reader, in the most accurate and concise way. So no wasted words, okay? We don't want jargon and people, rambling on about the topic. We want it short, concise, to the point, very clear, and that will be a mark of good writing. So the aim is to make the reader's task as easy as possible. So think of the reader and to ensure that what they have to understand is what you intended them to understand. The three key characteristics of good scientific writing and readability are conciseness, clarity and consistency, and brevity. In my experience, I've supervised lots of postgraduate students. I've read hundreds of research submissions, articles reviewed hundreds of research papers. And a lot of them, I think, they could cut the words in half. So if it's, say, a 10,000 word article, they could write it in 5,000 words and lose no information whatsoever. It's just reorganization, cutting out stuff that's not needed, redundant words, okay? Or using flowery language. So factors that improve readability are non-technical language. You should try that wherever possible, unless it's a highly scientific journal and people who are exactly in your research field are reading the same stuff, so they understand. A clear and direct style, very important. Short sentences. Don't go for long 3 or 4 line sentences. Each sentence shouldn't be more than 2 lines at the most. Use short and familiar words as well. This all helps improve readability. Using the least amount of words to express a concept without losing any content or detail. This is what I said before. Often you can cut a submission, a research paper submission, in half and not lose any information. A word or phrase is redundant if it does nothing to help the reader understand the sentence. The research focused a comparison between the year 2007, when a severe drought occurred, and the 2002 period, characterised by a lack of drought. It's waffling. It could be improved. Okay? Okay, we're cutting out words. We compared 2007, when a severe drought occurred, with 2002, when there were no droughts. Simple, easy to understand, and you've cut out a lot of wasted words. These are the things you should work on in your writing. We compared 2007, when a severe drought occurred, with 2002, when there were no droughts. If you compare that to the first one, you can see there's a dramatic improvement. There's a wide variety of studies dealing with the evaluation of the effectiveness of agricultural extension programs in the Pacific region. We will discuss a certain number of them that in our opinion are of particular interest to our research. Again, very waffly, lots of words not needed. You can cut it out, shorten it, and make it easier to read. Several studies exist on the effectiveness of agricultural extension programs in the Pacific region. Full stop, because the original sentence was too long. We discussed 3 papers that we believe are more relevant to our research. So just a little bit of cutting back, and you have a much better, clear expression. In the research community, your ability to write concisely is far more important than your ability to fill up a page with text. Okay, so always aim for conciseness. Read and read and read your sentences. See how you can cut them back. See how you can shorten them. It's good practice to get into it. How can you write more concisely? Cut redundant words, you've seen that. Redundant words are those that can be removed without having to make further changes to the sentence. So it was a good example, this is a common example. It was small in size, round in shape, yellow in colour, and heavy in weight. In terms of distance, Benin is 10 kilometres from Goroka. Words being wasted. Remember, each research article and journal just has a limit on the number of words, so use them well. So, it was small, round and yellow and heavy. Simple, very much shorter. Benin is 10 kilometres from Goroka. Okay, you can see you're taking out the wasted words. The research will be done in December for 6 days. Okay? Our research initially focused on designing the Plan Land Usage Agreement, cutting out redundant words. The coffee berry borer control was not straightforward, and there was a danger that the programme would be unsuccessful. We've probably cut the number of words in half there, and no meaning has been lost. Okay? Another way is to write more concisely is prefer verbs to nouns. Too many nouns make a sentence heavy to read. Example, X was used in the calculation of Y. You could just say, X was used to calculate Y. Shorter, simple, clear. This is what you should all be striving for in your writing. And every time you write something, you've got to think through these things. Just don't write it and leave it. Think, how can I improve it? Okay, here's some other examples just quickly. Carry out a test. Instead of writing carry out a test, you could just say test. Conduct a survey, you could say survey. Give an explanation, explain. Make a prediction, predict. And you guys try the others. Show an improvement, what could you say? Improve. Send an email, email. Obtain an increase, increase. So you're already cutting out words, you're keeping within your word limit, and it actually sounds much better to someone reading it. It sounds clear, easy to understand. Try to use a shorter word. Some people like to use complicated words and look up the dictionary and so on. But remember, you're writing, the purpose of writing is to communicate. So you've got to make it easier for the reader, and you've got to think of that all the time. So, you know, you got the long word, the short word. So subsequently, you could say later, maintain, keep, extremely, very, demonstrate, show, terminate, end, currently, now. So you can see how this will improve the readability of your writing. Okay. Choose the shortest expression. Use the expression that requires the least characters or words. Okay, here's some other examples, and you can think of other ones. You often see considering that, given that, due to the fact that, notwithstanding the fact that, in view of the fact that. Those are expressions that can be shortened to one word or two. Okay? I don't need to go through and due to the fact that, for example, one word because saves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words. 5 words gone, replaced by 1 word. Other thing, long expressions. We have to point out that it must be stressed, and again I'm a bit guilty of this myself. It is interesting to observe that. It is worthwhile bearing in mind. It is important to recall that. So you could just use the expression note that, and you're cutting out a lot of words. You're making your writing easier to understand, easier to follow, easier for the editor, easier for the reviewers of your journal paper to follow it, and I can guarantee you they'll like it a lot more if it's clear and to the point. In the normal course of events, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words could just be replaced with normally. Okay? It's an empty phrase, you don't need it. On many occasions, often. A good number of times, many times or frequently. From time to time, occasionally. In a rapid manner, rapidly. In an easy fashion, easily. From a conceptual point of view, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words replaced with 1 word conceptually. So you begin to see how you can make your writing more concise, better quality, easier to understand. Okay, the fact that the bridge collapsed means that we could not visit. Okay, that's a bit convoluted. You could say, because the bridge collapsed, we could not visit. In order to conduct the study, the team first gained approval. Often you don't need in order to, you could just say, to conduct the study. Okay, the team first gained approval. It is necessary that all staff must lock their laptops away. All staff must lock their laptops away. Quite straightforward. But again, it's improving the quality of your writing. Be concise when referring to tables and graphs, tables and figures. Like this one. Figure 1 diagrammatically presents a comparison of 2 components of the cost of production. Figure 1 shows a comparison of 2 components of the cost of production. Again, you're cutting it down. As can be seen from table 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words. Table 1 highlights. Cut it in half. So you can be more concise by deleting any words that are not 100% necessary, finding ways of expressing the same concept with fewer words, using verbs rather than nouns where you can, choosing the shortest words and expressions. So you might think, oh, this is simplifying my writing. No, it's making it clear. It's making it easier for all those readers out there, your editor of the journal, the reviewers, the people who read your articles, the farmers in the field who are reading your extension training manuals. You're making it easier to understand. You're improving your communication. Remember, when you write, the purpose is to inform, not to impress the reader with how good you are at writing English. The purpose is to inform or to communicate what you want to communicate. Like, here's a few examples. In terms of the coffee industry, each individual smallholder must count the actual number of coffee trees on their plot of land to ensure that there is hard evidence to establish once and for all the total area of smallholder coffee holdings in PNG. It must be emphasised that the results of the research shows that plantation productivity is higher in comparison with smallholders. Again, very wordy. You know, if I read that, I'd think, no, this person, they haven't really got the paper ready for submission. They need to do more work on it. In the coffee industry, each smallholder must count the number of coffee trees on their land to establish the total area of smallholder coffee holdings in PNG. Basically, cut it in half. The research shows that plantation productivity is higher than smallholders. Simple, clear, easy for the reader. A sentence or phrase is ambiguous or vague when it has more than one interpretation or its interpretation is not obvious. This is a big problem, especially in postgraduate writing. Be careful where you position a word in a sentence because it may change the meaning of the sentence. For example, the word only is well known for the trouble it may cause when it is out of place. Avoid using ambiguous words and phrases. Okay? Gilma only made one trip to Benin last year, which was questioned by her boss. What does that actually mean? The meaning intended was only one of Gilma's trips to Benin was questioned by her boss. Okay, that's much clearer. It's not that she only made one trip last year. She made lots of trips, but only one of them was questioned. Okay, here's another one. Merlin only eats fish on Fridays. What does that actually mean? How do you interpret it? Does it mean Merlin only eats fish on Fridays and no other day of the week? Or does it mean that on Fridays Merlin eats only fish and no other type of food? The meaning's not clear from where the only has been put in the sentence. Be careful where you position the word in the sentence because it may change the meaning. Okay, avoid using ambiguous words and phrases. Here's a good one. Bart likes annoying smallholders. Does it mean that Bart likes to annoy smallholders? Or does it mean he likes smallholders who are annoying? So you can see, you can understand that sentence in two ways. So you've got to think about what you're writing. It's the former. If it's the former, then the sentence should be written, Bart likes to annoy smallholders. If it's the second meaning, then it should be written, Bart likes smallholders who are annoying. So you can see the difference there, it's clear. Here's another one, misunderstanding. After consuming a carton of beer, Jonah presented the top 50 producing coffee smallholders with their awards. What it meant was, after the top 50 producing cocoa smallholders had consumed a carton of beer, Jonah presented them with their awards. Some helpful hints to avoid ambiguity. Be careful where you place only in a phrase. So if you're using only, check it, read it. The words this, that, and it must be used with care or ambiguity will result. Like, here's an example. I put the blanket in the car and then I left it there all day. What does the it refer to? Is it the car or the blanket? So to avoid that, I put the blanket in the car and then I left the blanket there all day. So you can see that getting rid of that potential misunderstanding by trying to explain what. We cut the tree into sections, then separated the trunk logs from the branches and then burnt them. What does them refer to? Is it the branches or the trunk logs or both? We cut the tree into sections, then separated the trunk logs from the branches and then burnt the branches, or you could say and then burnt the branches or we burnt both. So respectively is a useful word to use to avoid ambiguity because it clarifies how items are related to each other. Where x is the function for y and a1 and a2 are the constant functions for p and q. This is an example. Are a1 and a2 constant functions for both p and q? Or is it that a1 for p and a2 for q? You need to clarify. So, where x is the function for y, and a1 and a2 are the constant functions for both p and q. Or, where x is the function for y, and a1 and a2 are the constant functions for p and q respectively. So a1 for p and a2 for q. Paragraph consists of a series of sentences which develop a main idea, one idea. Too often paragraphs are all mixed up, different points in them. A paragraph should show unity. A paragraph should show coherence. the various parts of the paragraph come together into a single idea or concept, rather than a range of unrelated ideas. Each paragraph in a document should have one topic, one main idea that is clearly evident in the paragraph. Usually it's the first sentence. Each paragraph should have a clear relationship to the main topic of your document. If not, either the paragraph should be eliminated or the main topic should be revised. Thus, each paragraph is one relevant subtopic in a larger document. So here's a good example. The main reason why villagers grow coffee in the Bennett district is to earn income to pay for school fees. First sentence in the paragraph, that's what I would call a topic sentence. The other sentences follow on and explain it. For example, on the same paragraph, second sentence, 78% of smallholders indicated that coffee was planted to earn income to pay for school fees. When coffee income was insufficient to cover school fees, households sought alternative income sources. These alternative income sources were the sale of pineapples and billims. Now that's the sentence that links into the next paragraph, which is probably about the sale of pineapples and billims. So you're linking the paragraphs. So your topic sentence is the first one. Okay. The main reason why villagers grow coffee in Bennett is to earn income to pay school fees. That's what that paragraph's about. And the other sentences in the paragraph build on that or develop that point. And then the last sentence links into the next paragraph, but still contributing. Is the next time you're reading a journal article, read the first sentence of each paragraph, go through and read it, and see if you can understand what the paper's about just from reading the topic sentences. Hopefully, it's written in that way, and usually it's the first sentence in a paragraph that's the topic sentence. So I'll just leave that with you to do as an exercise. And when you're doing your writing, try and think about what you're writing, how to express it, redundant words, making it simple, short sentences, good paragraph with a topic sentence, all the other sentences in the paragraph linked to the topic sentence. And you'll find that your writing will improve dramatically. So I'll leave you on that. Thanks very much.
Thank you. First of all, the level of presentation also was really high. Really high level of presentation. We're happy about that. Shows like the importance of our collaboration with external partners, support researchers outside. We have our abilities, but also our organizations that do the do. That is definitely stood out there as well. That was quite impressive on that. Maybe we can start with the last one first. It was very light. It was very important that the skills of writing and information sharing. Definitely information sharing. One thing I thought maybe for the benefit of Somare is also we work on our PowerPoint presentations, make it more effective. Maybe Mr. Karim might give us some statement of that.
Postgraduate students in research writing, which is unfortunate because it's just assumed that they'll learn it as they go on the job. And supervisors will, edit their chapters and correct it, and the student's supposed to learn from that. But sometimes a bit of explicit teaching on it might be very helpful. Part of this presentation was in our research with CIC, Opera, CCI, and other organisations in Papua New Guinea. The senior Australian team members and the senior PNG team members do these training workshops every year or two on research. So this is part from one that was on writing a few years ago, and it's just sort of a few changes in it. But the part of the junior early career people on these projects find it very helpful, and and useful, and we've noticed a lot of improvement in the writing. So for example at CIC, they've got the P&G Coffee Journal going again, and a lot of the contributors in that are the early career researchers. So they do the training, they take some aspect of the research project, do all the analysis, writing, and then publish it, so it gets reviewed and all that, so they learn the whole process. And then with PowerPoint, that's the same, you know. I used to do a lot of undergraduate teaching, and I used to get the students in third year to do a PowerPoint, a little research topic, go away, do a bit of research, come back, present it in PowerPoint. But then I had all the other students assess it, you know, on all these different things: conciseness, clarity of presentation, use of overhead, and they'd have like satisfactory, okay, unsatisfactory, and then they give us a score out of 10. And then I just average them, and that was the mark for the student for that assignment. But it was really, really good, because by the end of the seminar series, the students' presentations had improved dramatically. And the other thing is they marked harder as they went on, so the students who presented early, when the lessons were being learned, were not disadvantaged. So, but as they learned more, they worked a bit harder, so the marks seemed pretty fair to me. But they learned an awful lot about it, and what they were learning in the presentation was also relevant to writing essays, you know, being concise, being to the point, you know, finishing on time, all of these things.
Excellent company. They're doing well to protect or prevent, you know, the excessive invasion of those pieces. Did you find out in your research, maybe find out what they've been doing to stop that?
ExxonMobil has these, they call them the washers. They have these washers where when you wear your boots, or when there is from each elevational sites along the pipeline that they have. So when you travel up towards the sites, you bring your car in for wash. They wash all the tires, the mud gates and everything. Your shoes as well is all been washed. And then you continue your second journey. So this is what they do. So by having these measures in place, we can see from the results that has contributed towards the decrease in most of these exotic plant species being spread towards the higher elevation as well. So they have some very good management strategies that they use. And they also introduce, for example, some species that can be able to compete with these exotic plants that can not only decrease the ability of them to spread vigorously, but to limit the amount of spread that they have.
The alien species, did they come in on machinery from overseas? Because the question is, because when the cocoa pod borer hit East New Britain, some people were saying they thought it might have come in logging equipment from overseas. I'm just wondering if that is a factor. The machines are coming in with weed seeds on them or something.
We have found out that most of the introduction of these invasive species have been due to the disturbance caused by humans. But then we have seen that machineries are the ones that are the main contributors towards introduction of these species. Yeah. So you can see how well now pipa is doing as well. It's becoming troublesome with in New Guinea. So not only New Guinea, but I think towards Borneo and the other parts of Southeast Asia as well.
Is there any potential for you to expand on that or do another one, including postgrad students here at the University of Goroka? Do you have any plans?
For the higher part of it, we are planning on looking at the different regions, the continents that in the world, how these species were able to basically migrate from these continents towards the island of New Guinea. And we are looking at the origin of the species itself. So we have seen from this research, it was mostly tropical American continents that have contributed towards most of the species that we have. But then we are seeing that due to the increase in networks, the amount of networks, like now we have globalization and flights that are coming in, and also container ships that are coming in, so the huge amount of traffic movement that is happening, we are trying to basically collaborate with some organizations and see how the spread is coming in place. Yeah, but we're mainly looking at the plants because of the propagule and how fast they were able to adapt to the environment. Yeah.
Working with communities is very challenging. You have people with different level of understanding and interpretation to certain things. And can you just give us some insight into how to deal with people, particularly when you want to get things done for them and they come with different ideas, but from 2017 to today, like your community project over there is actually progressed. So would you like to just share a little bit on how to deal with the people out there, especially when they're doing this work free and volunteer, they're not being paid and this kind of work?
Actually, it's very challenging working with communities. Like not all the communities the kind of identity that we are working with. Different communities, they have their own community politics and how they respect community members and all this. Like for myself, like to start an organization, I mentioned to initiate the project. Like one thing that I see is like building trust and confidence within the member themselves, not me as an initiator. Because we have several community-based organizations that's been going on in the past, and then so many like associations, and then it just established for a month and then it dies off. The management, there is no trust and respect among the community leaders. So for me to start an organization like this, like to bring the people together to a common understanding is not that simple. So what I did was I have to do away with the traditional way of people, like communities are engaged in how they handle things. So we started off with the young boys, the youths, which I believe they are the foundations of the community. So we engage the youth. I do away with our own community leadership system. So I just put the leadership, the community leaders away, and then we started off with the youths. Gradually, as things progressing, people started to realize the importance of those young ones. So with those different CBOs that we established, these are not managed by those community leaders, which they have their own past experience and better reputations. People in the village, they don't have respect for them anymore. So we utilize the young people.
Now the modern trend is using softwares like Grammarly and other things. I try to discourage my students using that because communication should go from your brain, like human touch, Human touch is very important. With this kind of software, it's actually making you feel dependent more on technology in writing communication. What's your opinion on it?
It's very important, I think, that students really develop the skills themselves and they're independent because they've just got to learn it. And I noticed that, especially in P&G, good writing skills are very important in jobs here, in the formal sector. If you can write well, I just noticed that because I've been working in P&G for over 30 years, and I've noticed it's a big, big advantage in the job market if you're able to write well. So it really, I think, pays much more here than it does in Australia to write well. So you should really students should really work at developing those skills well independently. And some of those little tips and techniques that I presented, they're not hard to do, but they make a big difference in the quality of the writing, and when someone reads it, it just seems so much clearer, easy to read. So I would urge all students to really try to focus on writing well and communicating their ideas well, and actually thinking about not just what the topic, but how you're writing it and presenting information. You do that, and you do that, you'll be improving constantly.
I was try to see, like some of the essays that you did, to see the follow-up. So first of all, when you did the self-viability essay, I'm kind of closely used. I love some percentage of it, but we do some tracer cells. Second is the evidence sequences. Obviously, we're trying to describe the protein. So, and then of course the protein in relation to the compound production. So the mechanism for the compound production. I think that is what the research group is trying to do. And then finally, the modification of the compound itself, which is the method that we talked about in So yeah, I think it's interesting. We are in the biotech center, started as well, but we are already gone there. We have interest in marine, especially marine plants and animals. So we're interested in this sea snail. Sea snail, they feed on seaweed. But the production of this anti-cancer is not from seaweed, it's something else. They try to reduce the biosynthesis and they can't come up with anything. So it's very ambiguous. They're still working on it, they can't find anything. It's not coming either from the seaweed or from the sea snail. It's coming from something else, we don't know. But they're still working on it to identify biosynthesis. And for the protein, the peptide, we haven't started anything on this one. But we try to identify the biosynthesis in the marine spores. The sequence itself, we use a to determine the sequence, we use a multi-topics, high speed beam to feed just 0.01 millimeter is body. You hit it and you split the whole thing up and then you identify the sequence. It will also give you the sequence itself. So you will calculate the mass of each amino acid residues and then you can determine the sequence. We get a sample, we split it up into small residues, and then we do a derivative, and then we determine the stereochemistry. It's based on the, if you run HPLC, it will give you a different separation, the timing, the minutes or seconds. So the known sample you run first, and then the unknown sample you run, and then you compare the recent time. So if you have to say the timing should be exact, and then you can determine the stereochemistry from the known amino acid. And then you can either L or the amino acid. And then the synthesis, you try to add value to it. It's like the wheat give you a flour. So then you have to do a bun, you make a bun and also other stuff, bread. It's just like that, you try to add value to it. You get something new. And also increase the bioavailability and enhance the bioavailability.
Thank you, the School of Science, for delivering a really high-level presentation, and also it's exciting to learn about various research projects that you are doing at the university, and it's the first time we get a glimpse and an insight into the prospective research activities happening here in the School of Science and Technology. So we thank the Executive Dean of School of Science and Technology, Mrs. Savita Di Brito, for providing that leadership. Please give a round of applause. Also, I want to make a special mention of Mr. Alois Duro. He had 2 weeks to pull together a total of 5 presenters. One didn't present today, he will present later, but we had 4 presenters today giving us this high-level presentation. So I thank Mr. Alois Duro, who is the Director for Center for Natural Resources Research Development here at the University of Goroka. Thank you, Mr. Drewall. So let's invite our Vice Chancellor to come up and take his seat. And also maybe it's wonderful to at least give him an opportunity as well to say a few words if he wishes to say otherwise to say something along the lines of the signing of the MOU. But I think it's good that maybe he could share with us the top management and the council dream for the University of Goroka, and particularly for the Somare Research Institute and research and publication activities here at the University of Goroka. So I'd like to invite the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Teng Waninga, to come forward and probably speak to us briefly before signing of the MOU. Thank you. Please put your hands together for Dr. Teng Waninga, the Vice Chancellor for the University of Goroka.
But I'd like to thank our visitors and the presenters, especially our visiting scholar, Professor George, for being with us. We need academics, researchers, we need our visiting scholars from around the country and around the world to come and present, because University of Goroka is part of the global community. We're not existing on our own. We need to have network, partnerships, MOAs, MOUs, or signing so that our students get that exposure and experience, especially in listening to qualified, experienced scientists, scholars, researchers, people around who have gone before all of us, who want to share their knowledge, skills, and experience with us. It builds our knowledge, it builds our background to be grounded in content and in our skills and areas that we are trained to do. But Dr. Awi, thank you for organizing this series of seminars, presentations, and you are leaving to your institute, where we say Somare Research Institute. When people are presenting research, and it's also good for our postgraduate students, our students to know how research is done, how it is evaluated, how it's presented, and further, how it is published. So University of Goroka has got three core principles, core functions in Papua New Guinea, in academia. Firstly, we are into offering programs for our students. Secondly, most important function is research. Without research, we cannot exist as a university. We need to be involved in research activities. When you're involved in research activities, you either publish or you present. And these are avenues that we are creating for our scholars, our partners, people who want to network with us to make this university feel that we are part of that global community. We are attached to so many other people like the Binatang. We've got a medical research center. We've got NRI. And we have our Somare Research Institute. We have got big plans to make sure that research is given priority in this university. We've been a teaching university for a very long time. 25 years of teaching is okay. We have done that. We did very well. Now we need to focus into research. That's one of the other areas that this management would like to fund and would like to support in making research activity part of these academic activities that we provide, rather than teaching alone in the classrooms. I was part of the previous management, and I was the Pro-Vice Chancellor, spearheading with Dr. Jenawi, trying to establish that Somare Research Institute, and we have done that. And now we are funding. And we will continue to fund this very important institute where we share our knowledge, we create knowledge. I think STEM is coming up. We are put under a lot of pressure. Papua New Guineans, our country is a knowledge consumption society. We consume a lot of knowledge. We don't produce knowledge, and that is a challenge. As VC, as top management team, our students are involved in Marata research. Our science people are doing mushrooms. They're studying into frogs. they're studying into broccoli's disease. This is what we want to do. We want to create new knowledge and share this knowledge with other people. University of Goroka should not be consumers of knowledge all the time. In the next 25 years, we want to produce knowledge. We have developed our own program, the SMART system. No other universities are using their own system. And we have lecturers who are here. We have got the skills and the knowledge that they have been hiding for so long. Now we're picking them out. What can you do in your division, in your school, to create knowledge? So now we have a system that's working for registration. We've got a system that's going to help us into providing service for the students, messing, dormitory, even research, even our elections. You know, next year, SRC election, we will not even campaign and do things. You do it online. You just press a button and then it counts. So we're into IT, information technology, creating of knowledge. And lastly, third function for this university is it's community service. So community service is something that UOG wants to reach out through MOAs and MOUs. We cannot create, or we cannot stay here in isolation. We need to go out to the communities. If there are centers that are helping our communities in terms of ecotourism, business, finding out diseases, tropical diseases that affect our crops like coffee, cocoa, coconut. If there are research centers, people who are doing things, we want to reach out. And this MOA is a significant part where we want to help the communities. So those are three major things that we are aware that we want to do. And if there's funding that we want to give to people who want to do research, I think we've increased budget for research funding already. If we got some 200,000, I said, well, we increase it. We increase it 100%. And MOAs, MOUs are the basis where we can partner together as a state university with people who are providing services to the community. And this MOA, MOU will be a significant event for us and for this university. As we put pen to paper, we'll share responsibilities in what we can do. So I'm happy to be part of this. To make sure that we have a MOU in place so that our students have access to what you people are doing in the communities. With that MOA that we will have now, it will pave way for a lot of bigger things that we want to do in terms of research, publications, training, scholarship, all the other things that we want to do through this MOA. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor. Thank you very much for setting forward the visions and the dream that we have for the University of Goroka, and hearing from the top management team by the Vice Chancellor himself, I think is very welcoming, and we appreciate that. So again, let's give him a big round of applause for that. The Vice Chancellor is taking his seat. May I invite the witness for the top management team, Dr. Matthew Landu, Acting Pro-Vice Chancellor of Academic Research and Innovation, to come up and take a seat as well. And then let's invite the Executive Director for Mau Berama Ecotourism organization to come forward, Mr. Moses Carey, to take a seat next to the Vice Chancellor. And let's invite your witness. Is there anyone witnessing it? Conservation Chairman, Mr. Jeff, and take a seat on the left next to Mr. Moses Carey. And then may I invite Mrs. DeBrito, the Executive Dean for the School of Science and Technology, to come forward and facilitate the signing of the MOU.
Thank you, Dr. Jainavi. We will have 4 documents on the table, and 4 documents need to be signed by concerned officers, and we will exchange that documents once we have done signing of all the 4 in your respective name list. At this juncture, just to highlight, we started off with, in 2017, this Moberama Ecotourism Center through our homegrown academic, Mr. Moses Carey, and he has taken that bold step to come up with that idea and to conserve biodiversity in his place, that's in Dinima. And we normally have students visiting that place as field trips we conduct, and they learn a lot of things. As you have listened to his presentation, they have a lot of activities that they conduct over that place. If you are science or geography students or any other discipline, you have a lot to learn from there. They have a lot of things to offer. Ecotourism, especially the Tibet students, you can observe. It's a very beautiful place that we have been there, and maybe one occasion TMT and others can also join and see the beautiful mountains, caves, waterfalls, many things to name. So at this time I would like to thank Moberama team, Executive Director Mr. Carey, for accepting this invitation to come and do your presentation and also sign MOU that will lead us to send our industrial training students in the field of sciences, biology, environmental science, chemistry. Last year even business study students also went in and they did some of those challenging work that he highlighted in his presentation. So without further ado, may I ask Vice Chancellor to exchange the documents and shake hands as a token of us signing and coming to that memorandum of understanding to do whatever documents says or terms and conditions of the MOU that we are signing. Today it is small but significant occasion to sign this very important MOU with them, and it will take a long way for University of Goroka and Moberama to cooperate and collaborate in all the ideas that we have put in the MOU document. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mrs. DeBrito, the School of Science and Technology, Ms. Alois Drewar, and all the presenters for your time and your effort in making today's presentation a very successful one. So we thank you for that. Also, congratulations to the signing of the MOU between the University of Goroka and Moberama Ecotourism Organization. We look forward to visiting Moberama in the near future, and also we encourage more partnership and collaborations like this. Should anyone out there interested in forming alignment or forming partnership with the University of Goroka through the Somare Research Institute, through the research centers we have here at the University of Goroka, we are really looking into the future and looking at developing research and publication programs and encouraging good research activities at the University of Goroka. And so we welcome opportunities such as today, the MOU between Moberama and UOG through the School of Science and Technology. So please let us know so we can facilitate more partnerships like this. Finally, the next presentation will be in 2 weeks' time, and we will feature presentations by the School of Postgraduate Studies, some postgraduate students who have submitted their thesis or dissertations and are ready to graduate. They will present their research findings. So we encourage you to come and learn about potential research and also what our students are doing in terms of research and publication, and the potential of the supervisors and the expertise that the supervisors bring to providing academic research leadership for our postgraduate students. So we invite you to come and learn about this. For HRM 481 and 482, Research Method 1 and 2, final year students, this is also an opportunity for you to learn about the fundamentals of research and also learn about how to present your research. The level of presentation that we saw today, we need to learn and also improve our presentation. So please